Great. Specifically, coming to the topic and the concept that you're sharing in the book, you're talking about spontaneity, right? And when I look
Mhm.
at spontaneity, one thing that I see is people must have what I call as situational communication awareness, right? Which
Aha,
is
yes.
very, very important, because I'm sitting in a situation. I must be mindful and self-aware of what I'm going to be saying. How is it going to be taken? What's the mindset of the person who is receiving the communication? And therefore you might have multiple styles, right? Some people say, hey, I have a personal style, I have an intuitive style, I have an analytical style. Therefore multiple styles are there. But when it comes to spontaneity, your ability to assess which style would you deploy, and therefore how do you really communicate, is that very important? And do you cover that as a part of the overall the core concept of how you see it? And would you agree with me? And what do you think? How do people prepare for things like this?
I 100% agree with you that situational awareness, the ability to read the room, to understand the context, to use pattern recognition to identify what is needed, all of those are the same way of saying the same thing. Communication always happens within a context. And you have to be aware of that context. You have to be aware of the needs of the people within that context and what's relevant to them. And yes, in the book and in the teachings that I do, I spend a lot of time talking about how we have to think about our audience and the context in which we're speaking, and try to adjust and adapt our messages to be appropriate given those circumstances. So it is absolutely critically important. Those are skills that you can learn and that you can apply, and you have to be successful. A message in one situation that works really well might be detrimental in another circumstance, either the tone or the structure of the messages or the wording that's used or the timing that it's delivered. So all of these factors play a role. And we need to be aware. And this is where, again, getting back to the notion of introverts tend to focus on the context a little bit more than extroverts do. So again, there's an advantage in some cases to that. So yes, and so the question becomes, how do you do that? Well, one, you have to be aware. Two, you have to be able to think quickly on your feet and make some assessments. And three, you have to reflect after the fact and say, was that the best way to do that? What would I change next time if those circumstances repeated themselves or perhaps were slightly varied? So lots of things that fit under that umbrella for sure.